But yeah, yo, Mr. Saccoccia. Like I said, last week was BS, man. Take us through it. Like, what went on there?
Okay, so Tuesday, everybody knows Trump and myself both got arrested the same day. I'm sure that was just coincidence because, everyone just gets arrested every day. For me, it was my 27th arrest, the 73rd charge I'm facing. I already beat 72 charges. And I wanted to get this to go on record. Does anybody know what the average conviction rate is in Canada?
No, tell us.
No.
62% convictions, 39% acquittals, and 1% hung juries, mistrials, etc. So, in theory, I should have over 40 convictions from my 72 charges. I have 0. So, that means either one of two things. I'm the luckiest man in human history, or I'm being unfairly and illegally targeted by the government for a specific reason. Now, before, that reason was, I was going against public health orders. I was spreading COVID misinformation. But now, I'm not talking about COVID at all. I'm not talking about mandates. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about the simple problems that face the city, like waste, the housing crisis, etc., and how I believe we can fix them. Yet I'm still being treated like a terrorist and a criminal. So people need to ask why. Why would the government be doing this? Well, the answer is obvious. They're afraid of what I'm telling people. So pay attention to what I'm saying. Because if what I'm telling people is so scary to the government that they got to arrest me when all I'm doing is running for mayor and running a normal campaign like everybody else, albeit much more efficiently, I might say. But that's all I'm doing. We're not doing anything out of the ordinary. We got lawn signs like everybody else. We're hosting campaign events like everybody else. But they're treating me like I'm some kind of freak. And let's also take note. The media will not play any of our ads. We cannot advertise on the TV, the radio, the TTC, the bus. And there's a very good reason for this. The same reason why the media doesn't include us in the polls. Or if they do talk about me, it'll be because I got arrested. The media, as we all know, takes government money. Yeah. Now, the government says, no, we don't really pay the media to produce their content. They choose whatever content they want. But the reality is they pay wage subsidies to the biggest media companies. That means the government is literally paying their employees' salaries with our tax dollars, but at the same time pretending like they don't have a say in what those media companies do.
Like, obviously, those media companies align with the government. Like,
they have no choice. Otherwise, they would be bankrupt.
Yeah.
They cannot survive without government money.
So what was it last week? They planted a story on you and they just caught you?
They did the same thing that always happens. They get somebody to call the government that has a vested interest in keeping me quiet for a specific reason, usually personal interests for themselves, and they simply say that I threatened them. No proof needed. They just say, Chris called me on the phone and threatened him. Like, imagine we got off this right now, and I just called 911 and said, you threatened me. And they said, what's your proof? I go, I don't have any proof, but I'm telling you, he threatened me. Imagine they would come and arrest you.
Yeah, crazy.
That would never happen. But to me, it's already happened 3 times. 4 times if you include when somebody said I beat my wife.
Do you think it's because of your name? Like,
obviously, this was a different purpose. This was because I was about to expose somebody. And when someone's about to get exposed, in his mind, the best way to stop me from exposing him was A, get me arrested and charged, and B, he knew if I was charged with death threats, now I can't talk to him. So it's pretty hard to expose someone.
What was the exposure?
Wouldn't you?
Can we talk about it?
Of course, yeah, we can talk about it. I'm not on a gag order. Well, everybody knows that the first main debate that they televised to a whopping like 5,000 viewers was at the Daily Bread Food Bank. The owner of the Daily Bread Food Bank was in contact with me because we were looking for a place to donate all the food that we got from our barbecue. We got all kinds of food. So I had already made a donation to the Daily Bread Food Bank in a cash donation the day of the debate where they hadn't even invited me anyway. And so I was talking to the CEO, his name's Neil, and he said the biggest criticism that they received after was that they only invited the candidates that everyone saw on TV and they didn't give anybody else a chance. Well, I go, well, we could rectify that. We could just throw another debate. Just like you threw the first one, we could throw a second one. Yeah. And he liked the idea. So we ended up planning it with a couple other candidates. We even had a professional moderator become part of the Zoom meeting. Everything was set up. We started inviting the candidates. And then at the last second, after everything was ready to go, he got back to me and said, sorry, our board of directors said we don't have the resources to do this, which I knew was complete BS because all of the candidates had agreed to donate a certain sum, which would have made it more than viable for anybody to do this event. So they just cut it off politically. So I got upset. And I sent him a text message with these exact words. I'm going to expose your corruption and bullshit. Thanks for being a piece of shit.
Yeah. And that was a threat.
That's what he tried to say was a threat.
Jeez.
And then he followed that up with a voice note that I sent him in relation to that, and it was obvious, it was very derogatory, and
yeah. You're emotional in that moment.
I don't want to, no, but it wasn't a threat in any way. Oh. It was a joke, and the cops even told him that's not a threat either. It was derogatory and a sexual comment that I made towards him. Like, obviously, it was a roasting comment.
Yeah.
But the police said that's not a threat either. So then at that point, he didn't really know what to do, and he said, well, he called me after that and said he was going to cut my head off. This is apparently, I'm just alleging this. This is what he apparently
everything's
said.
allegedly, right?
Well, this is allegedly what he said. I said allegedly. There you go. If you really want to get technical. He allegedly said that I was going to cut his head off and he's dead when I see him. A far cry from the actual proof he had that said, I'm going to expose your corruption and bullshit. And of course, he didn't have any of this as evidence. This was just his word. And based on his word, not only did they arrest me and charge me, but they wanted to make sure I got held and had to get held until I saw a judge to go to bail. Anybody else wouldn't even have been charged in these circumstances unless there was some kind of evidence. Like if the text message I sent him said, I'm going to kill you, motherfucker, then they would have grounds to arrest me and I wouldn't be able to say anything about it. But in this case, it didn't say that. So they shouldn't have arrested me. And if they even wanted to arrest me, at the very worst, I should have got a promise to appear, sign a paperwork saying I'm not going to talk to this guy, and that's it. But no, they arrested me, and they kept me from 5:30 in the morning when I held myself, when I surrendered myself, to 9 o'clock at night. And I had made bail at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I was ready to go at that point, had the paperwork, and they just kept telling me, sorry, we're not letting anyone go right now. And they kept me there for an additional 9 hours. With the bonus, they've done some weird things to me in jail, I'm not going to lie. They've put me in what
solitary
they call...
at all?
They always put me in solitary. That's standard operating procedure, especially during COVID, because I won't wear a mask, won't take a jab, won't take a test. So they literally just keep me in solitary confinement. So that means I didn't have a cellmate. And if I was on a range where there was other people, which was virtually every time, they would get to go out of their cell twice a day for an hour and 15 minutes each time. You could go to the gym, go to the library, go to the cafeteria, talk to each other, watch TV, whatever. I would only get out for 10 minutes every 24 hours.
Damn.
By myself, just to use a phone, and that was it. I couldn't do anything.
How has that affected you?
It makes jail a lot worse than it has to be, and jail's already the worst place. And when you're in remand, like prison, waiting for your bail, you only get fed twice a day. So you're in there, and you only get the 2 meals. And they would even, most of the time, they would get rid of my hot water. So I couldn't make coffee, and I couldn't even really wash myself because I wouldn't have access to the showers, and I had no hot water. That's what they would do every time. Other times, they would do, like, extra shit. So one time, they locked me in, instead of just normal solitary, what you would call the hole. And it was literally like a toilet, just covered with feces everywhere, all over the place. So anywhere you sat, you were sitting in feces. And then they, instead of having the window on the door, they put a picture of me on the door, so the only thing I could see was myself. And they kept me in there, and I ended up getting I had a tiny little cut on my thumb, and I ended up getting a nasty infection that time. But this time, they did some cruel and unusual punishment that I wasn't expecting. The kind of stuff you see in movies that you laugh at, but when it happens to you, you won't be laughing. And what do I mean by that? Well, they put a mentally ill guy in the cell next to me. So he's in his own cell, but literally right next to me. And for the entire time they kept me after I was ready to go from my bail, to myself, by the way. I got bail to myself. That's how ridiculous these charges are. This guy just sang on the top of his lungs, as off-key as possible, but for 9 hours straight. And I'm saying everything from 50 Cent to Celine Dion, Heart Will Go On, and back again. So when you're already locked in a friggin' cage and all you want to do is chill, relax, and try to get some sleep on a cold concrete slab with no pillow or no nothing, and all you hear is like a screeching on the nails on the chalkboard in your ear. There was other inmates that were crying. They were freaking out. They couldn't take it. At one point, I had to just start hitting the door for like 30 minutes straight, hoping the guy would stop. He wouldn't stop. The guards didn't care. And then finally I got out at 9 o'clock. So they kept me just under under the 24-hour limit that they had. But we all know why they did it. They try to slander me. They try to make people scared to vote for me. I had people be like, I don't want a lawn sign anymore. I'm afraid of reprisals from my neighbors because you got arrested for the 27th time. Like, give me a break.
Yeah.
Like, how many times do I have to get arrested and off the charges before people call me a criminal? And how come people call someone a criminal when you have no criminal record?
Do you think that makes a big dent in your run for mayor?
No, to be honest, I think it works in my favor because all the people that weren't going to vote for me anyway, like the classic hardcore left NDP Olivia Chow supporter, no matter what I do, I was never going to vote for me. So they're not going to be swayed by that. And then my supporters on the other side aren't going to be swayed by that. In fact, they're going to be galvanized by it. And then the people that are on the fence at this point, they're going to ask the question that I asked at the beginning. He's not talking about COVID. He's not telling people not to wear masks or not to take a jab. He's telling people how he's going to fix the housing crisis. So why the hell are you throwing this guy in jail? Even the normal people that were never on my side, the TV watchers, the people that were compliant with the mask and the jab and everything else, they're questioning now. And if they listen to what I say and they hear my platform, I don't know, have you watched any of the debates I've been in?
Yeah.
Well, I've been in 3 debates. They haven't televised any of them, but in my 3 debates, I've debated over 20 separate mayoral candidates out of the 100. So to my knowledge, I've debated more candidates than anybody else, including Josh Matlow and Mitzi Hunter in one of my debates. And I think anybody would agree that I was the clear winner in every debate I had. And I had some answers there that just the clips of the answers are getting hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views, which is far more than the so-called top people debates we're getting.
Yeah.
And did you see Olivia Chow's grand opening, by the way?
Personally, I haven't.
Okay, so she has this little tiny office near the Danforth. No yard, no parking, no nothing. So she had her big grand opening, CP24, CTV News, CBC Global, all promoting this. She had about 40 people show up. This is the supposed front runner. Now there's me, the person who supposedly has no chance, no real support, completely blacklisted by the media. We had over 2,000 people show up to our barbecue. Wow. So how do you explain that?
Yeah.
How do you explain this? Have you gone to the betting websites? There's one betting website.
Yeah, where you can bet on what's it called? The
voting.
Yeah, exactly. They used to do it with Trump when Trump was running.
Thank you. Yes. There's one betting website, Bet365, and no, this is not a paid ad.
Hey,
but they're the only one I saw that actually put me in the running. And right now, my odds are showing at 50-1. And that's like, everyone's like, 50-1, that's shitty. But when there's over 100 candidates, almost 120 candidates, I should be over 100-1. But I'm already showing at 50-1. Yeah. Now, Olivia Chow is showing a 97% chance of victory. So that should tell anybody who knows anything about gambling that she really has no chance of winning. Because do you think that they're going to let her win if all the money's bet on her? Does the House ever lose in betting? No. When Hillary Clinton was up against Donald Trump, it said she was a 99% chance of winning. And what happened? She lost.
Does it discourage you in any way, like to see these numbers or even to who you're going against?
Absolutely not. Well, I've seen numbers that are all pointing in our favor. For instance, in the 2022 election, which was a full election, all the counselor positions and everything had to be elected. So you expect a lot more votes than a by-election where we're only voting just for the mayor, nothing else. Well, in the 2022 election, there was 1.6 million registered voters, and 110,000 voters voted in the early voting session. Now, in this by-election, there's 1.9 million registered voters, or 300,000 newly registered voters on top of that. And we had 130,000 people vote in the early voting. So normally a by-election has a fraction of the total votes of the normal election. In this case, we're on pace to have more votes in the by-election than we had in the normal election.
Why though? What do you think the reason is? Do you think they're trying to stop you?
It's either a combination of crazy interest in me or voter fraud on their part. And I think it's going to be a combination of both.
Do you think voter fraud, especially in Canada, is something that we have to worry about?
1,000,000%. Voter fraud happens in every country, everywhere in the world. It's just a matter of how much they can skew the results. And in a federal election, both in the United States and Canada, it's a lot easier to rig the election because they have seats, they have the electoral college. In a municipal election, there's just everybody counts all the votes. So they can do things with the mail-in ballots, they can do things with the early voting, and they can do some tricks. So they can skew the results significantly. But we have an ace in the hole that nobody talks about. They're not counted in any polls, and everybody just counts them out.
Are you going to tell us about it?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
It's called the unregistered voter. People like me that have never voted in their life. And that represents the majority of the population. People think the unregistered voter is a non-factor. But the reality is that's the largest voting bloc in the country. And 95% of them support me. If those people get out and vote, and it comprises the 18-year-olds as well, like the 18, 19, all these young kids that love me. If they get out there and vote, we can get enough votes just from the unregistered voters without getting any votes from the 1.9 million registered voters to win this election. So imagine how many votes we can get from the registered and the unregistered.
How can we change that though? Like honestly, like
we don't need them. If you're an unregistered voter, all you need to do is go to the voting booth that's closest to your home address on June 26th with your piece of ID. They register you instantly on the spot and give you a voter card. 82 Chris Saccoccia, done deal, and we're done. I'll get 6 if we get the unregistered voters into the voting booth in big numbers. I can get 700,000 votes in this election, and John Tory won the last election with 350,000. We can make it have 1 million plus votes in this entire election.
How confident are you that you're going to win this election?
I am supremely confident because every single day, the number one thing I hear from people is, "I've never voted, and I'm going to vote for you." And it's people of all age groups, all ethnicities, both genders. And today I was just driving around. I was on my way to get changed so I could go to an event. And I passed by a big intersection, Markham Road and Ellesmere, out here in Scarborough. And so many people were driving by, and there's 4 very visible corners. And I saw everybody's sign but mine. And I realized I hadn't hit that corner yet. And I keep signs in the car at all times with the mallet and everything, no matter where I'm going. So I was like, damn it, I'm late, but I can't see this. I got to pull over. So I pulled over, grabbed 2 of my signs to go put it on the 2 corners. In the time it took me to drop those 2 signs, which was maybe 2.5 minutes, I had at least 50 different cars, 50, from all the different directions driving. Either honk, wave, stop, take pictures, video. That's how much support we have. Like literally just me standing in a friggin' street corner for 2 minutes, carrying a little mallet and a sign, was just causing a parade of sounds in the street. It was fantastic. Because
people aren't used to I guess the mayor candidate doing that.
They're not used to representation. My cell phone number, people calling this phone, they think it's a joke that my cell phone number is on my election signs. It's in all my pamphlets. You can Google Chris Sky's cell phone number. They think it's just another number. No, it's this phone right here. That's why
How much calls do you get a day?
You don't even want to know, bro. The day that I said, the other day I made a call out asking for paid positions for night sign watchers because they have a huge campaign to tear down my signs because that's the only form of advertising that they can't stop from me because I print my own signs and we put them out ourselves.
They can't do anything about it.
So all they can do is tear them down, right? So they were doing just that in a very massive way, hundreds and hundreds a day in some cases. So I said I was going to hire some people to watch signs, and I posted on Twitter, Telegram, and Instagram for 5 minutes and took it down right away because I already knew I had made a mistake as my phone started blowing up. Somebody shared it on TikTok, and then 6Buzz posted it. Oh my goodness. I was getting on average over 120 phone calls an hour for most of the day with text messages to match. So I got something like, I don't know, close to 1,500 phone calls on the worst day. On average, I get hundreds of calls a day.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I want to ask,
I interact with hundreds of people a day, if anybody wants to know.
Chris, I want to ask, have you had any candidates that should reach out to you that like internally they're like, I actually believe in your platform kind of idea? Where they're not like,
Just
you know what I mean?
the most recent debate I had. At one point or another, every other candidate that was supposed to be debating me started off their talking with, Well, I agree with Chris. And at the end, the female candidate at the end of the stage came up and used her last time, instead of supporting herself, said that everybody should be supporting me because I'm the only one with a chance to win. So
Wow.
I can even win over the other candidates in the debate. It's clearly obvious that not only am I qualified with my background in private development, design, planning, and building, money management, etc., but I have the passion, I have the drive, I'm the most dedicated, and I'll work the smartest, I'll fight the hardest, and I'll get the best result. And everybody understands that. There's never been a representative of the people like me.
Yeah. Do you see anyone that's not you that you could see take the position?
Absolutely not.
No one, right?
No. I see a lot of people that I could work with that would work well in my and have parts in my administration. But as the head, as the leader, as someone that needs to take this city and totally transform it from what it was to what it should be, you need someone like me that's going to be able to shake things up in a big way. Cut that fat, get rid of that waste, bring down the housing prices, get the revenue we need to be able to balance our budget so we can lower our taxes, especially for our seniors and our most vulnerable people. And you're going to see Toronto's just going to turn around like almost overnight, just with a few key tricks.
I was listening to a podcast that you were on, and you were explaining like a rent-to-own program where like
Yes.
people, like students or young people, can basically do a deal with the government where you can rent to own, right?
Yes.
Like your property.
It's a
Can you
very.
explain that?
I can explain it quite thoroughly. The biggest and worst enemy you have when development is the government. They are the biggest cost. They are the biggest timeline for any developer. If you're buying a house for $1 million, for instance, 300,000, 30% of those costs is government fees and levies. The developer is probably making 70 to 100 grand on that house. And he's taking all the risk. He's doing all the work. He's spending the years, etc. The government is the real problem. And it's because they charge a lot of money for the process, and it takes a lot of time. And time to a developer is money. You got to pay your salaries every week. You got to pay your interest payments every week. So imagine, if you will, a mayor came in that actually was a developer at one point, that worked with every single municipality relevant to the Toronto mayoral campaign, and worked with the zoning, development, planning, building departments, all relative to this. And we came out with a program that gave developers an incentive by streamlining the process so they could rezone, redevelop, and get the building permits a lot quicker and a lot cheaper. This will translate to increased volume of units in the same amount of time that will increase availability and decrease prices in two ways, by increasing volume and by allowing them to build way faster. So already you're going to have a two-step down process of housing prices. Now, in order for those developers to be able to access these wonderful incentives, they're going to have to give a percentage of these units back to the government at a hefty discount. So now the government can do their rent-to-own program for lower-income people, or people that are first-time home buyers, or single-family dwelling, etc. And why? Because this will allow people that can't have the same down payments as people making six figures or plus living in the same buildings. So this is now going to bring integration into Toronto instead of segregation. And this is going to bring up everybody's standard of living and give everybody equal opportunity. So now a whole bunch of people that would have been perpetual renters and wouldn't really have anything investing into their future except maybe their education at that point. It
But
gives
even
them some,
then-
even then,
but
what
even
is that
then,
really?
yeah.
How many people actually use their degree? Maybe 20%. But imagine, while you're a student, instead of paying $1,500 a month rent, that $1,500 you guys
to
are
my
both
house,
paying
yeah.
is going into your house, and you're a 50% owner, you're a 50% owner. Are you going to waste that extra $500 you made that month on partying and stuff?
Probably
No,
not,
you're probably going to try to put it into your house because it's going into your future. So now we've changed the entire attitude from spending to saving, and we've given people hope, and we've given people a tangible asset and equity that they know they can build on and eventually pass on to their children. That, for the human psyche and for purpose and everything, is fundamental. It's a fundamental
Because right now it's like a
principle.
supply and demand issue.
It is 100%.
Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
exactly.
So why is the government right now, like, why are they not developing? Like, what are all the bureaucracies you got to go through?
Because now they're more worried about climate change than anything. What people don't realize,
we gotta
this is
ask
very,
about
it's
this.
very scary. Everyone heard in 2020 we were in a COVID emergency.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
need to tell everybody that.
Yeah.
But what everybody didn't know, that was in 2019, They quietly declared a climate change emergency.
And we finally had it happen.
And we've been in a climate change emergency technically since 2019, according to the government. And in 2022, in May, while we were still under COVID lockdown, they unleashed a new zoning bylaw. And it's all about climate change, and it's all about reducing the individual carbon footprint. And that's why everything now is a 15-minute city. And if you saw some of the videos I've been posting on Instagram and other social media, I'm going around the city and we're finding these big City of Toronto rezoning things. And it's showing the new bylaw, the new climate change emergency bylaw. And under the new bylaw, they're building everything 15-minute city style. So what does that mean? It means you're going to get this big building with hundreds and hundreds of residences at the top, commercial and retail at the bottom. Now, here's the problem. They want you to live upstairs, work downstairs, go to the gym in the same building, go to the Starbucks, get your groceries, virtually everything in the same building. So you never need to leave your building. So convenient. Oh, there's someone that goes to jail a lot. It sounds a lot like jail, and nothing's as convenient as jail because you never have to go anywhere and everything you need is provided for you. And if you want to go somewhere, you have your car, right? Oh, no. In a 15-minute city, 75% of private vehicle traffic needs to be reduced. That means 3 out of 4 people are no longer going to have a car. Well, how are they going to stop you from owning a car? Very simple. That building you're living in has 500 residences and then hundreds of retail and commercial spaces, but it only has 200 parking for cars and 1,000 parking for bikes. So what are you going to have, a car or a bike? Answer is you're going to have a bike. Yeah. And that's what they want. Why do they want you in a bike rather than a car? Very simple. In a bike, you can go what? 5, 10, 15 kilometers. In a car, you can travel literally across the continent. What do you think they want for you? Do you think they want you to have that freedom and mobility? No. Or do you think they want you confined to a small space like when you were on lockdown?
So what do you have to say about Mr. Trudeau's tweet there when he said, the smog in the air and like the fires coming from Quebec and all that, like it's the reason why we have to go against climate, you know? Like,
maybe they shouldn't.
What's that about, man?
Maybe they shouldn't be starting all the fires.
So they're starting the fires.
You know they're starting the fires. There's dozens and dozens of people that have already been charged with arson, which means they're starting the fires. Like, you cannot deny they're starting the fires when they have lineups of people that are being charged. Like, not just enough, like, there's many people in this room. Like, busloads of people are being charged. Think about this, guys. Think about busloads of people, of school children, but not school children, of arsonists starting fires all around the country at the same time. That's why when you looked at the satellite videos, there's all these fires starting at the exact same time. It wasn't lightning strikes at the in all different locations at the same time. No, it was people. And we even saw videos of helicopters dropping the fire bombs to create these fires.
So is this planned by the government?
Of course, it's just another way for them to create chaos so they can take more control, just like they did with COVID. They created an emergency. Out of the guise of the emergency, they took all your rights and freedoms. And they're trying to do the exact same thing with climate change, except it's more dangerous than COVID, because COVID was always told that from day one that this is only temporary. This is only temporary. While at the same time telling you this is the new normal. This is the new normal. So obviously they lie. But with climate change, you can tell that it's never going to be temporary. Climate change, they're literally trying to reprogram people and get people to change their expectations for how they want to live their life. Like in their mind, you're not flying on an airplane 3 times a year, maybe once every 5 years. You're not driving a car from here to anywhere. You're going on the bus or you're taking your bike and your thing. And let's talk about that a little more, by the way. Yeah. So imagine we're not young, healthy male adults. How are we going to get on our bicycle or our scooter if you're an old lady or you're somebody with a disability or you're 350 pounds? Or it's 5 months out of the year where it's actually snow on the ground and ice. Where are you going on your bike and your scooter? Answer, you're going to be on lockdown. But don't worry, everything you need is in your building. Where are you going to go if you don't have a car? Answer, you're not going nowhere. You wouldn't be able to even come here to do this interview if you didn't have a car. Would you all be able to coordinate public transit and get all your equipment together and get here? No. Answer, you would not. So they want you to have absolutely less freedom and less mobility. And what does it do for small business? They try to pretend that the 15-minute city is great for small business. Oh, really? Oh, really? So every time you take a road that has car traffic on it, and now you take away the ability for cars to drive on it, what do you think happens to all the small businesses that are on that street? They all closed down.
Didn't it happen to Eglinton?
That's going to happen anywhere you do that, because every one of those small businesses relies on the car traffic, because car traffic brings people from all the surrounding suburbs. So now your customer base is millions of people from as far as hundreds of kilometers away every single day. But as soon as that can't drive there anymore, now your customer base is as much as the people that could walk or bike there. And they don't even go and they don't even shop at your store.
They don't leave though, right?
Because they don't shop at your store because they see it every day. Yeah. Only people that were shopping at your store are people coming from the suburbs, and they're driving all that way just for your specific store. The people that are walking by your store every day are like, it's here, I don't need it.
Yeah, it's true. What's the timeline on this? What do you think? How long?
By 2030, in their books, by 2030, they want 75% of private vehicle traffic eliminated. And the other 25% doesn't mean that's for citizens. That's supposed to be like Ubers, Amazon delivery, government vehicles, taxis, etc.
Yeah.
They don't want anybody to have a private car. They want to have complete control over the skies, over the roads, including over what you eat. If you saw in New York, everyone's like, "Oh, what's the mayor? What's the big deal with the mayor?" The mayor of New York had the power to not only limit the amount of meat all public institutions serve, because meat's bad for climate change, he also put in a new law that they're going to be tracking your grocery purchases for your carbon footprint. Because why do they want to track your carbon footprint? Like I told you.
Last podcast, remember?
Once you allow them to track your carbon footprint, now they can set baselines for what's acceptable. So now they can tell you you're using too much. And if they're telling you you're using too much, guess what? They're going to either limit you or they're going to tax you. One way or the other, they're limiting.
You know what's crazy? I remember we talked about the carbon footprint, or like at least when you buy your plane ticket.
Yes.
So from the last time we talked was 3 months ago?
Yeah.
If you look at it now, it's almost 5 times higher now.
That's what I told you what happened. And I told you in Sweden, they're already at the point, and I just posted this yesterday, or not yesterday, like 3 days ago, an $1,800 ticket from Sweden to Toronto and back again, over $500 of that ticket is taxes, $550. Of that, over 400 of those dollars is all carbon taxes. So 400 out of 1,800 on those tickets is carbon taxes. And it's not voluntary
What
anymore.
other countries are aligned with this agenda?
Virtually anyone that signed the Paris Climate Accord Agreement, which is like 90 countries out of the 200, but 90 countries that represent virtually 90% of the GDP of the world. So almost everybody.
Question, do you think, with especially the UN and now BRIC coming up, do you think that's beneficial to this situation in any way?
It's not beneficial for the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar is now, people don't get this. First of all, the U.S. dollar is what we call a fiat currency.
Yeah.
No fiat currency has ever lasted longer than 50 years in the history of humankind without getting destroyed. That was last year for the U.S. dollar. So it's literally a zombie. It's literally the walking dead of currencies. Yeah. And that's why they created BRICS. And that's why all those countries in BRICS, and now like another 20 countries joined BRICS.
Yeah, what was posted on Friday? I think they announced
the hallmark of BRICS is doing all your trading without U.S. dollars. Let's say that again. Without U.S. dollars, which was the world reserve currency that every country was forced to use. So now we have, dozens and dozens of countries, including the biggest economies of the world, that are going to be trading without U.S. dollars. So the inevitability is the collapse and the replacement of the U.S. dollar. They're going to try to collapse it and replace it with a digital currency, a central bank digital currency. But why the U.S. dollar still has value right now is because countries like China own billions and billions and billions of U.S. debt. So if they allowed it to collapse, they're allowing all the financial manipulations to go on behind the scenes to keep the U.S. dollar propped up artificially. Because at the same time that that's happening, China is spending their U.S. dollars on infrastructure, land, even in Canada, everything they can buy, because they know that those dollars are going to be worthless sooner than later. In fact, that's another Las Vegas betting site as when the U.S. dollar is going to collapse.
Really? Well, did you not see that Warren?
I swear I'm not making that
That's
up.
funny.
Well, recently, did you not see what Warren Buffett recently did, where he dumped on the Taiwan? So I think it's TSMC, which is the semiconductor company.
Yeah.
He dumped everything, and then there was a bunch of investors actually recently put puts against it because they think essentially it's done. So I recently heard about this, and so going back to what my question was, do you think it's beneficial for the U.S. dollar to actually be no longer the reigning currency?
It depends who you ask. You're talking about a worldwide issue. If you ask the U.S., they're going to say hell no. If you ask the BRICS, they're going to say hell yes. If you ask Russia, they're going to say hell yes. Cool. So who are you asking? Are you asking me as a Canadian? Are you asking me?
True, and I guess
as a Canadian, it's probably not great for us because our currency and our fate is tied to the U.S. dollar as well. They're like the bigger version of us.
Yeah.
So if the dollar were to collapse tomorrow, we'd get screwed too. So
no benefit out of us.
there's no benefit really for anybody in North America for what's going on right now, and that's been the plan for a while now.
I don't know if you saw in the parliament that video of where Polyev said to Trudeau, he's like, "Oh, I wonder why you had to resign as a high school teacher."
Everybody knows why. Trudeau had sex with an underage girl, and then he had to pay the family like millions of dollars in a settlement with a gag order so he wouldn't get in trouble for it.
And the girl was in high school?
I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I believe from memory when they had the affair, she was like 15 or 16.
And how
he
the
was
hell is that?
significantly older, and he was in a position of power because he was like a teacher, right?
Yep.
That's crazy.
I want to ask you about
And that's ridiculous because that's exactly what we're trying to stop happen today with the new curriculum, which we know is identical. It's child grooming, SOGI, sexual orientation, gender identity, literally puts all teachers in that position legally, where they're teaching kids as young as like 7, 8, 9 years old about masturbation and about their genitalia. And the excuse is that children are having puberty earlier these days. It's really gross. So we should.
How do you balance, like, I guess, like, because you need, I guess, that population to vote for you as well, right? So
well, the LGBT community are firmly in alignment with what I'm talking about. They don't want to sexualize children. Why does an 8-year-old need to know about LGBT? LGBT has to do with sexuality. An 8-year-old doesn't understand what sexuality is. When they see a transgender running around in a dress, they think they're just playing dress up. They don't understand that transgender is trying to be a sexy female and trying to be provocative. They don't understand any of that. Meanwhile, if an 8-year-old child goes to their parents, "I want to eat candy canes and ice cream for breakfast," you're going to be a bad parent if you give your kid candy canes and ice cream for breakfast. But if your 8-year-old child says, "I want puberty blockers and to chop off my penis," you're a bad parent if you don't let them have puberty blockers and chop off their penis.
And what's the incentive behind that?
It's very simple. It makes the state the number one influence in the child's life, not the parent. Think about it.
They're raising our kids.
Not only are they raising the kids, when they turn them trans or LGBT, which is exactly what they're doing, the state now creates them as a special protected minority. So now the state is better than their parents because the state is giving them special privileges. And who is most likely to comply with the state? The LGBT. How many LGBT people do you know didn't take the COVID jab? They all took it. Hell, they all took the monkeypox jab. They all wore the mask because they trust the government. How would you not trust the government when the government is telling you you're special, you're better than everyone else? We're going to give you all these extra rights and benefits and privileges. Hell, Pride is not only a month anymore, it's now Pride season. Did you check the government website?
Holy fuck.
Pride season. Because, that's the most important thing that we should be known for. The entire season, not summer, it's Pride. Remember when it started with just a parade? Then it became a month. Now it's a season. And we're trying to tell you that it started with drag queens wanting to read to your kids. Now it's drag queens performing for your kids. And the next thing is going to be drag queens teaching your kids to be drag queens. Oh, wait, that's already a thing. They call it drag camp for your 7-year-old. And people are still not waking up to what's going on. And I'd also like to point out, they talk about the $1.5 billion budget deficit that Toronto has, and that's going to have for the next 3 years if we don't do anything about it. And by the way, when you ask a politician how to raise revenue, they give you the only answers they give you is raise taxes, raise fees, and raise levies. When you ask a businessman like me how we're going to raise revenue, the answer is I'm going to create the conditions in the city that's going to attract multi-billion dollars of private investment into our infrastructure, our housing, and our transportation industries. And that's going to increase our revenues, increase our jobs, increase our GDP, and improve every aspect of the city for the people and everybody coming into it. And not only will we be able to balance the budget, we will have a budget surplus, which will enable us to lower taxes. But you're not going to hear any of them do anything like that.
But since we're talking about kids, I want to ask you, do you want kids in the future?
Of course I do.
And would you put them through this curriculum of school?
Are you out of your friggin' mind? I'm going to get rid of this curriculum before anybody's kids go through it. I guarantee you that.
I want to ask you, what about Bill C11? Yeah, C11.
They're already using it on me. It's something that we really need to be aware of. For people that don't know, it's the online censorship bill. It allows the government to control any content that is on Canadian servers. It actually makes social media companies responsible for policing that content, and they can actually get charged and fined if they don't. So it creates very large incentive for censorship against us. which the social media companies want to do anyway.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh my God, the government's making us do this. Like, we know that Facebook wants to control what you say. We know that they can censor conservative voices, etc. We know they try to sway elections. So it's not good. The only way around it is to get your stuff hosted on a server that's not from Canada. One of the best countries to do that in is Switzerland because they have amazing laws, not just for banking, but for internet.
That's where Spotify's out of, no?
A lot of companies use their servers out of Switzerland for this express purpose that they don't want to be censored or they don't want to be attacked, etc.
What I guess system of government around the world? Because you've been traveling. You travel a lot. You travel to probably like 100 different cities. You said
Over 40 countries, over 100 cities around the
so.
world.
What system of government do you respect and you're like, okay, they're doing it right here?
Or align with.
Well, you have to have free market capitalism. That's the only place that the individual can succeed, when the individual has rights, where the individual's motivation is cooperation with each other for the betterment of everybody. All the other known systems, unless someone can come up with a better one. Obviously, free market capitalism is never really free market capitalism. It always gets cronyized. It always gets corrupted by the government. And the more government regulation, the more you have government merging with corporations, the more free market capitalism slowly becomes fascism. Fascism slowly becomes socialism, where we are now. And socialism slowly becomes communism. And then everybody dies fighting back against the government. And it all starts all over again. So it's a cycle. It doesn't just happen overnight. It starts as free as possible, and then the government slowly makes the case for regulation, and we slowly move on the way to
and what part of that cycle are we at right now?
We're in socialism right now in Canada. Look at the amount of taxes we pay. For every dollar you make, you pay about 70% of it away in taxes, whether you know it or not. So that means the government is making 70% of your money for doing no work, and they're using it to give to all the people that they were paying CERB to, all the people that they're giving $50,000 gender reassignments to, etc. That's where all your money and tax dollars are going. And, of course, right into their pockets because they steal all kinds. For instance, what did Chrystia Freeland just do? This is how dangerous the green agenda is. We needed to buy new buses. So they bought 363 buses. If you bought the normal clean diesel buses, which have almost no emissions and superb reliability and longevity, you would have spent around $150 million. Already expensive. She opted for the green electric buses, almost $800 million. And after 5 years, you got to replace the $60,000 battery in all 350 of those.
Holy shit.
So you do the math of how much she
Yes.
She just wasted almost $1 billion on green agenda. And that's just one tiny example from the federal government. So when I go through all the different departments of the municipal budget, there are billions of dollars allocated to garbage like that can be taken away and repurposed to things that will actually help the communities, actually help the people in those communities. We're going to put people's and families first, while the government's been putting themselves first. That's the biggest difference between
Is the
me and
government doing
politician.
anything right, you think, in your eyes, anyway?
Oh, yeah. They're giving themselves a lot more money and a lot more power. If you're looking at it from the perspective of the government, they're doing
What
everything
about for
right.
us, though?
For the people, they're doing everything wrong. And the people know that. That's why do you think the largest voting majority are the people that aren't registered and aren't voting? Because they look at the candidates and say, why the hell would I get off my couch and vote for this person? They're not going to make my life any better. So I'm going to waste my time. Or, in fact, I'm going to be aiding and abetting a criminal. That's how most people think, because that's the logical way to think. Why am I going to vote for evil? And everybody else says, "Oh, if you don't vote, you can't complain." Meanwhile, they also acknowledge that all the candidates are hand selected and every candidate is evil. So they're just trying to vote for their lessest of evil. How can you vote for evil, actively support evil, and then when evil does evil, as you know evil's going to do, you act surprised and you act like you got taken advantage of? No. They look at you and they tell you, "Hey, I'm evil. Olivia Chow already told you on TV, I'm going to raise your taxes." Now people are going to vote for her, and then she raised the taxes. Everyone's going to complain. It's like, but she literally just told you on TV that she's going to do that.
And Olivia Chow's the front runner right now.
Yeah, sure she is.
So what? So
So, yeah, even too, right? Because she's at the top of the poll, as you said. Allegedly,
Yeah,
right?
but how do they do those polls? Who do they ask?
The government, right?
Who does the government have? How do they say random? You don't think they know who they're asking, which voting sector they're asking, which streets, etc.? Of course they do. They know exactly who they're asking, and they can hand select it to make sure they get whatever results they want. And it's pretty easy to make sure I don't do well in the poll. You just simply don't include me in it.
Question: do you think even if you did win by numbers, you think
not if when I win?
No. So then this
by
is
numbers, I'm gonna win by a lot of numbers.
Well, this is my question. Let's say you actually do win by numbers. Do you think they would actually orchestrate it where you don't win? Where even if your numbers run correctly,
more than likely is I win and they try to kill me. That's probably more likely because I think we're going to get so many votes. They're literally not going to be able to keep the lid on this. They're already scrambling as it is. Why do you think they arrested me? You think they wanted to give me that publicity? Hell no. That was the worst thing they could have did for themselves. They were desperate. Desperate times call for desperate measures, and they're getting more desperate every day, and they're getting less options every day, and the picture's becoming clearer every day who the real front runner is. Why do you think they don't want me in the debates? Because I would literally eviscerate those people worse than I've done to everyone else in all the other debates.
When you say they, who's like they?
We're talking about the people they show on TV. Because if they're shown on TV, that means just like the TV itself, they're also controlled by the government. And we know that. Olivia Chow, NDP. Anna Bilal, Liberal. Anthony Furey, Conservative, and backed by the World Economic Forum. So they're all backed by one of the major political parties, and there's not supposed to be political parties in a mayoral debate. So already that shows how corrupt this is, because they're getting money from political parties that aren't even supposed to be. Why do you think Pierre Poilievre didn't name any names when he was giving an endorsement talking about the housing market? Because he's not allowed. Meanwhile, his party is giving money to two separate candidates. So, and that already shows you where those politicians' loyalties lie. It's not with the people, it's with the special interests that get them elected. And that's why every decision they make once elected is not for the people. And people have to understand the difference between a leader and a boss. Get this straight. They've been electing people to be their boss. How can you tell the difference between a boss and a leader? A boss will sit in their little cushy office on their thousands of dollar chair and bark orders at you. A boss will not get on the front lines. The boss will not get their hands dirty, and a boss has no problem telling you to do something they wouldn't do themselves.
A leader shows
like putting a mask on, or taking a jab, or closing your business, or all the things they told us to do the last 3 years that they exempted themselves from. Why? Because they don't feel that they're on the same level as you. They're your boss, you're their slave. So they get to make the rules, you follow the rules, and they don't need to follow the rules. They showed you. That's their attitude. I'm not saying this. This is not an opinion. This is a fact. By doing what they did the last 3 years, they showed this to you. I'm a leader. I'm out there on the front lines. I'm out there at 3 a.m. hammering in my own lawn signs. Why? Because I will never ask somebody to do the things that I would not do myself. And plus, I want people to see me do that. You think Olivia Chow or Josh Matlow are going to be out there hammering their own signs? Absolutely not. You think they give out their cell phone number like I do on all my election stuff, getting thousands of phone calls a day and talking to hundreds of people a day? Absolutely not. There's a reason why. A, they don't care, number one. And B, if people did call and ask questions, they wouldn't be able to answer them because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. People say I'm not qualified because I haven't been in politics. That makes me far more qualified because I haven't been corrupted. I owe no favors. I have no special interests that back me. And I haven't been living off the public tits for the last 40 years like Olivia Chow. And my background is in business that shows I know how to be successful managing money, people, and resources, which is exactly what a mayor has to do. Meanwhile, what is Olivia Chow's background? She's an artist with an art degree. And the only job she ever had was a sculptor. And the only reason she ever got elected to anything was because her husband was one of the most famous politicians in the country. And so a sculptor became a school board trustee, which is a glorified parent-teacher meeting position. And then she got elected to the House of Commons, where she literally did absolutely nothing. And now all of a sudden, she's qualified to run one of the most complex and powerful and expensive cities in North America and the largest in Canada. Give me a break.
Yeah. Have you spoken to her or had any communication?
Are you out of your mind? She was supposed to be at the first debate. The first debate I did was at the Tropicana place. It's for the Black Community Center.
Yeah.
And Anna Bilal, Brad Bradford, and Olivia Chow were all scheduled to be there. They all confirmed the day of. I made sure they all confirmed, and then I showed up at the last second. At 7:59 p.m., I registered for the 8 p.m. debate. Josh Matlow and Mitzi Hunter were already there, so they couldn't run away. They entered the debate, and like lambs to the slaughter, they did get slaughtered. But Brad Bradford, Bilal, and Chow did not show up even after confirming they would be there. The moderator literally told the entire black community not to vote for them. And guess what? Speaking of the black community, I'm on the cover of the largest black newspaper in the country that's going to be going out tomorrow.
Really?
The Jamaican Express. The owner had never met me before. He met me and Doug, and he thought Doug, my campaign manager, was the candidate because he's an older, distinguished-looking gentleman. Yeah. And then when he found out I was a candidate, he was actually intrigued, and he spoke to me for 5 minutes. And he said, well, that's a shame. I go, what's a shame? He's like, now I have to take the ex-governor general off the cover of the newspaper and put you on it. And he did.
Wow.
So I'm getting copies of this tomorrow, and this should speak volumes, because the last political figure they put on this newspaper was Rob Ford 2014 when he won the record-breaking mayoral victory.
Damn.
And he won it. Why? Because he had the normal people, he had the ethnic communities all backing him, all going to vote for him. And that's why there's this massive campaign that Chow's so far ahead she can't be touched, because they want to discourage all the normal people, all the blue-collar workers, all the people that will really benefit from this election if they vote, to sit home and pretend like their vote won't matter. Mm-hmm. And it's going to matter more now than it ever has in their entire life.
I want to ask you, Chris, have you had special interests talk to you, like message you? And
oh,
like,
are you kidding? Of course.
How's a conversation like that go down?
People always come in and talk to you as a friend or as someone that wants to help your campaign, and then you find out what they want in return. It's pretty simple. Everybody always has to play their hand at some point, and so it's not hard to spot these people. And I don't pander to special interests. The only interests I care about are the interests of the people. So,
yeah, it's good. Also, another question I really want to ask is, like, so with the skyrocketing rent and everything like that, what's your thoughts on how you're gonna actually tackle that?
The what?
Rent skyrocketing. And
like I said, the way we're going to tackle that is by making houses affordable for purchase for more people. And by making all these new units available, some will obviously be rental properties, so there's going to be much more availability. That's inevitably going to bring rent down. I wouldn't mind looking at the foreign buyers tax for people that are buying investment properties. Like if a guy is coming here from China and he's going to school at U of T and he buys a condo and he's living there, he shouldn't pay no taxes.
Yeah, makes sense.
But if there's some Chinese oligarch or Russian oligarch that needs to launder $100 million before he pays it in taxes, so he buys 30% of the units in a building and they're just sitting there, then that guy should be paying exuberant amount of taxes, and that should be going to our city and helping our people. And I don't think anybody would disagree with that, and it would stop the foreign speculation, which is one of the reasons that our housing costs are going up so much. The secondary reason, besides government.
One thing I heard is your 6-point Bitcoin system.
Okay.
Can you explain that?
Yeah.
Yes. See what's going on
there? I have like a Bitcoin advisory team, and the reason we have a Bitcoin advisory team is because, and if you remember, 3 months ago when I was talking about this, it was still a conspiracy theory, the central bank digital currency. And now, just a few weeks ago, what did they announce? We're bringing out a central bank digital currency. Surprise, surprise, I was right again. They're not crazy.
Alex Jones over here, the Canadian Alex Jones.
And then so we want people to understand how dangerous the central bank digital currency is and how it inevitably leads to A, the end of cash, and A, complete government control over your entire life when combined with a digital identity. So the best model we came up with to actually get the public on board and get the public ready to combat this was, I got the example from Nigeria. Nigeria, that nobody realizes this, but about 11% of the Nigerian population uses crypto, especially Bitcoin, for transactions. 1 out of 10 people. It's crazy. One of the highest amounts of crypto usage in the world. So the powers that be thought this would be a great country for them to do the central bank digital currency, because everybody already knows how to use it. They'll adopt it real quick. The exact opposite happened. As soon as people understand what a Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is and understand what a central bank digital currency is, they'll never use a central bank digital coin when they can use a crypto coin that's private, anonymous, and not controlled by the government. It's just common sense. So when they adopted the central bank digital currency in Nigeria, which I believe is the 12th country in the world to officially do so, only 1 out of 300 people used it. So what did the government do to try to incentivize the use? They banned how much money you could take out in cash per week, even for businesses, to a few $100s.
What?
And if you took out more, they would tax you. between 10 and 20% of all the money you took out to try to force you to use the central bank digital currency, so then they could then eliminate cash altogether. Like, see how easy it was for them to limit how much you could take out, or even tax you for trying to take out your own money.
Yeah.
Imagine you wanted to take out $200 from your bank account, and every time you did that, they were going to charge you $40.
You're not gonna do it. Even to like what I found, no one carries cash anymore. If you actually think about it,
That's right. That's what
No
they
one
want. They
carries
want
cash.
people to hate cash because they want to get rid of cash. Cash is anonymous, and cash can't be controlled. Cash can't be turned off. Cash can't be banned, etc. So they want you on the central bank digital currency at all costs. Thankfully, Nigeria kind of revolted, and they changed it, so now you can still take out like $15,000 a week or something without any taxes. But we already know what their plan is. We already know the inevitability. So the moral of the story is, it starts with educating the public on how to use cryptocurrency. Because once they know, especially how to use Bitcoin, they'll never want to use a central bank digital currency. So that's why we came up with the 6-point plan. And number 1 point of the plan is to educate the public on how it works. The number 2 point of the plan is to foster a very strong stance against the central bank digital currency from all aspects of the public in all sectors. Number 3 is to start bringing in a municipal adoption of Bitcoin for payments. Imagine you could pay your taxes, fees, levies through the government with Bitcoin. When you could do that, people would start getting much more comfortable to use it. Step 4 would be to do the same thing, but now with private businesses. So imagine you go to bars and nightclubs, and now you can tip waitresses and pay your bills in Bitcoin. Why wouldn't they want to do that when Visa and all these companies are charging them like 2% a transaction? Yeah. You could keep all your money, and you can report whatever you want to the government at that point because it's all anonymous. Yeah. So there's lots of benefits. So you're going to have a grassroots movement of all these businesses wanting to jump on board because they're going to save money, and they're going to be more versatile with how they're reporting to the government. So it's going to be adopted. And then the next phase would be to introduce government stakeholding options and other ways for people to invest in government crypto stuff that would enable even widespread use. And the final plan is to create the infrastructure to do this on an international level. So now we've created a system where we've basically stopped central bank digital currencies around the entire world. And countries like Ecuador are leading the charge in this. The president there has got a stance pretty much exactly like mine against the central bank digital currency, teaching the public about Bitcoin. So this is a strategy that works, and it's not hard. Like, even older people want to learn, and we host workshops, and we have professionals that really know this realm, teach people exactly how to use it, understand it, etc. And it's not because we want everybody to use Bitcoin or we're anti-cash. It's because we want people to understand how dangerous a central bank digital currency is and how important cash is to maintain and retain. There you go.
So just to clarify, I guess, to the audience, like, what exactly did the government announce about their currency?
Well, they want to create a central bank digital currency, and they say it's going to be just for bank-to-bank transactions, and it's so amazing because it's instantaneous. So is a wire transfer. It's so amazing because it's convenient. It's not. It's just a way for them to get you used to the idea that every single transaction you make has to be tracked, traced, controlled, approved, and completely taxed by the government. When this system goes through, if it went through, you wouldn't even be able to sell your shoes on eBay or Kijiji without the government knowing about it, the government having to give you permission to do it, and the government taking their cut out of it.
Yeah. If they're not eating, they're not happy.
Exactly.
Day, right?
And we all know how the government operates.
So which crypto is it? Just Bitcoin, or is it Ethereum?
This plan focuses merely on Bitcoin for 2 reasons. It's the only one that has the actual stakeholder value that's strong enough, and the only one with the widespread international adoption. Now, a lot of people are going to come forward and promote their own favorite coin or privacy coin and state the reasons why it has superiority in this regard or this regard. And in a lot of cases, I agree with them. But when you weigh the situation as a whole and you need people to focus on one, Bitcoin is so much further ahead than all the others in the areas that matter most. That's why we're focusing on that.
Do you think Bitcoin is going to be the way we get out of this issue?
it's not going to be the only way, but it's going to be one way by not by people using it, by people knowing what it is and knowing how to use it. We don't necessarily need everyone to use it. We just need to know everybody to know what it is, how to use it, how dangerous the central bank digital
So would an
currency
end
is.
goal be like the public have 50% of the power compared to the government? Because right now it seems like the government has a lot more power.
The end goal should be the people having far more power than the government. The whole reason the government exists is to make life good for the majority of the people. That's why the Constitution, for instance, was a document designed specifically to limit the size and scope and power of the government.
Yeah. But we don't have that here in Canada.
We
right?
have a Charter of Rights, which is basically wiping
bullshit,
we could wipe our ass with it. Because as we saw, as soon as the government says your rights don't matter, they don't matter. Because all they have to do is declare an emergency. In the U.S., the Constitution doesn't allow the government to declare that kind of emergency and then run roughshod over your rights. And that's why they have a much better document than we have. And that's why everybody tries to crap on the U.S. in pop culture, because that's the most freest and most successful country in the world. No other country has ever created the kind of GDP that the U.S. has, or the kind of power and success that the U.S. has, and it's because they have that base of freedom.
And even too, the country's only been around like 60, 70 years. They haven't been around that
Who?
long. U.S. as actual a free country.
60, the 1700s is when they became a country, but
Okay. Well, no, when I said that is because it's from what I heard is the country itself as a freedom with itself actually is going back to what you're saying where they run how they do it. They said 60, 70 years, and that's why it's already decayed so quick.
I don't know what you mean by that.
you gotta explain that.
So I don't know, it's from a podcast. So essentially it's the issue with the US was once everything kind of settled itself out, right? The last 50 years they say that it actually developed itself. It went really rampant. They made all this money and it went really well. But then now you look at the US now, it's no longer where it used to be.
The reason that all the stuff the growth exploded in the last 50 years is because in the 1960s, the US dollar was pegged to silver. 1 ounce of silver was $1. And when you had a $1 bill, it said silver certificate on it. So you could trade that $1 for as a silver certificate for 1 ounce of silver. Then, once they killed JFK and the Federal Reserve opened up and they made the new $1 bill, and it looks almost identical, but at the top, instead of saying silver certificate, it says Federal Reserve note. And on the back, they put the pyramid with the little Ovo Noro Seclorum, which means in Latin, a new world order. Yes, it's on the back of your $1 bill now. Now, all of a sudden, your dollars were no longer attached to silver. And now banks were allowed to start printing money based on the amount of gold they held as a fraction. So what happened? They started creating massive amounts of debt and loaning out a lot of money. So all kinds of development happened. But during that time, we also had something else happen called inflation. So over the last 50 years, we've seen the largest loss of purchasing power in human history. Because when that dollar was tied to the silver, say in 1960s, the average man made $10,000 a year. The average house cost $30,000. So a man in 3 years could buy an entire house with no down payment, buy the house, no mortgage, free and clear. A man could save up, buy 2 cars, one for him, one for his wife. The wife could stay home, raise the kid. The man could work his job, feed 2 kids, have a house paid for, have 2 cars paid for. That's why they called it the American dream. As soon as the Federal Reserve took over and started printing Federal Reserve notes instead of silver certificates and printing trillions of them, each dollar became worth less. And now, if you look, how much is $1 how much is 1 ounce of silver? It's over $20 US. And so you look at the price of a house. That same guy that was making 10 grand a year in 1960 to buy a house that's 30 grand is making 30 grand a year now. Congratulations, you're making triple. But how much does that house cost? That $30,000 house is now like $700,000. Okay. So instead of 3 years salary, it's like 17 years salary. So instead of buying the house, now you're struggling to save up a down payment for a mortgage. And instead of buying a car, you're leasing a car. And now your wife has to go to work because you can't even make ends meet without. That's what they've done to us over the last few decades. And now they realize that it's gotten to the point where the gig is up. So now they're trying to convince you that the only way we can live and survive is if every one of us gets used to a far lower standard of living. That's why they want to take away your car. That's why they want you to live in a tiny little building in like a 300 square foot condo and never leave. That's why they want you to ride a bike, even though that 5 months out of the year you won't even be able to use it. This is what it's all about. So I hope people understand that.
And once you become mayor, you think that that's the first big move to change all this?
Well, the thing with the currency is pretty hard to change. I could create the conditions to slow down the inflation, but at a municipal level, that's something you have to do at a federal level. It's very easy to do at a federal level. If I tell people how to do it on this podcast, they'll probably kill me like JFK or Lincoln, because the reason those people got killed is because they went against the bankers. Lincoln didn't take a loan for the Civil War. Instead, he used the power of the U.S. Treasury to create what they called greenbacks, interest-free money. And it worked so well, he was going to expand the program, not just for the war, but to fund the entire U.S. government. So they hired someone to go and put a bullet in his head. JFK tried to stop what I just said with the silver thing. He created Executive Order 1110, which allowed silver to be legal tender again. So now people would have the choice of using a silver certificate from the U.S. Federal Reserve, which is basically toilet paper they could wipe their ass with, or a $1 silver coin, which over time the people would know is going to increase in value significantly, while their their U.S. Federal Reserve note $1 bill is going to decrease in value. So what would you rather hold? You're going to hold the silver coins. So his bill would have eventually closed down the Federal Reserve. So what did they do? Bang! They put a freaking bullet in his head. So I'll tell you how we can do it in Canada. Please don't put a bullet in my head, because I don't have the power to get it done if I wanted to. But even a 12-year-old girl made a video telling you this. The Bank of Canada has the power to create our money interest-free.
But why don't they?
And why don't they? Because they'd rather spend as much as possible, create as much debt as possible, because that's how all the politicians make money, because the bankers give them kickbacks. And the more debt that they create, and imagine how much debt they created with the pandemic, we're talking like an extra 5, 6, 700 billion in just a few years. That's like creating debt on your credit card. Yeah. What happens if you have an unlimited, like you had an American Express Black Card, but you put 500 billion on it? You're gonna have a pretty big interest payment. Yeah. The credit card company and the banks are gonna be very happy, and you're not gonna care because you're the government. You're not paying the credit card bill. Who's paying it?
Us.
We are. So what do? They just take more money out of our pockets. And that's what's going on. There you go. So now you learned about the banking systems.
Man, that's why I always love talking to you, bro. Honestly, like the first time it was like, a lot of things are exposed, but even the second time now, it's like you're always so good with your words and how you defend your stance. And like that's something that I applaud.
And people can fact check this. Tell people to search out a US dollar, 1960s US dollar. Look at it. It looks almost identical to the 70s, the dollars and the dollars that we have now. It's got, I think it's Washington on the front. And then on the back, it had a thing. And at the top, it said silver certificate. And then they changed it and they put the Illuminati pyramid on the back. And now it says Federal Reserve note. And it says Ovo Noro Seclorum, which is a new global order. And that's why people are calling the New World Order.
And you just recently, you said you were on InfoWars, right?
Yeah, a couple of days, like on Monday, the day before I got arrested.
1 p.m.,
actually.
right? The 1 p.m. announcement.
What was that like?
It was great. I love going on Alex Jones. If you heard what he said, it was one of the most flattering things. He's introduces me a lot of times as the world's leading activist. And this time, after I went on a long rant on his show, he's like, remind everybody, Chris, when did you start listening to my show? I'm like, when I was 15, Alex. He's like, and how old are you now? I'm like, 39, Alex. Like, see, he's been listening that long. And then he followed up by saying, he's ready to retire because I can articulate things better than he can.
Wow.
So if have Alex do like a passing of the torch moment.
That's a huge,
it was pretty amazing. I'm not gonna lie.
And what kind of conversations are you guys having? Like off camera, you guys are probably going deep on
Obviously,
shit.
you can imagine we just rant and scream at each other.
Those personalities are probably, you know about this.
Yeah, we have some good talks.
That's good, man.
He knows a lot. He knows a lot. People underestimate him.
He's smart for sure.
Well, look how long he's been in the game. You can say anything you want. I've been watching him since I was 15. End of story. Come on.
Yeah, and even too,
you got to be really plugged in.
That's what I mean. Or just to last that long in general, regardless.
Even too, they started doing the jar for how many times he's right. Because how many times has he been right so far? But no, it's awesome.
So that's a big compliment to you, eh? When he compares you to him.
Yeah. When he said when I can articulate things better than him, that was a huge compliment. And I guess he's right because he gets a little bit he gets a little bit angry. I get angry too, don't get me wrong, but his anger comes out more than mine.
Okay, one question I wanted to ask was about the Conservative Party leader, Paul Poilievre. You know, a lot of people think that he's going to be a big like change to this country. They think, and I know that makes you laugh. So like, why the reaction?
Well, he's going to be Justin Trudeau 2.0. Sorry. He's going to get elected, guaranteed. Then all of a sudden, all the things that Justin Trudeau has been pushing and getting criticized for, he's not going to hate anymore. What am I talking about? Digital ID, digital currency, 15-minute cities, more lockdowns. If they have a dangerous pandemic, they'll make an excuse for every single thing that Justin's already done. In fact, in February 2021, right before Pierre Poilievre became the hero of the trucker convoy and the leader of the Conservative Party, while Erin O'Toole was still the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre was the vice chair of the Emergency Financial COVID Committee, led by the Conservatives. And they were supposed to put forth their recommendations for emergency financial measures to combat COVID. And as the vice chair of this committee, guess what his first two recommendations were? And this was February 2021, ladies and gentlemen. A digital ID and a digital currency, signed off by Pierre Poilievre. The same things he now on TV criticizing Trudeau for once they found out how unpopular it was with the audience. Just like once he found out how popular the trucker convoy was, he showed up in Ottawa and claimed conservative leadership from O'Toole that way. So he was an opportunist. He's also backed by the World Economic Forum. In fact, the same man who ran Pierre Poilievre's leadership campaign for the Conservative Party, John Baird, was a multiple attendee at Davos World Economic Forum, Switzerland, a partner with John Kerry, the climate change czar, in a lot of things. And he's also a senior advisor at Eurasia Group, which is another global government think tank group. And guess what? John Baird also just endorsed Anthony Furey and is trying to promote Anthony Furey. So Anthony Furey is endorsed by the same World Economic Forum agenda as Pierre Poilievre.
So there's no winning on either side we choose.
There's only one way to win. 82,
Saccoccia.
Chris Saccoccia.
I love it.
I'm the only one. It's that simple. That's why they're so scared of me. Because I'm the only one talking about this. There wouldn't even be 15-minute cities in the conversation if it wasn't for me. Even the Toronto Star trolled us. There's a Toronto Star article. You can look it up right now. The title of the article is 15-minute cities will drastically change Torontonians' lives and should be the number one topic of this election, but nobody's going to talk about it.
Wow.
That's the literal headline. And I made the video right before I came down here to run that got over like 2 million views talking about how dangerous 15-minute cities are. And now they are a topic in every mayoral debate. And now people understand what they are. And now people are vehemently against them. And that's why the government doesn't like me, because what do? I shine a light on all the things that they want to do to us, and I tell people the truth of how they're actually going to impact their life. Oh, 15-minute city is great. It's about convenience. No, it's not. It's about slavery. And then when you explain it to people, like, holy shit, this guy's telling the truth, because the government can't explain how I'm wrong. They just say, oh, don't listen to him. He's a criminal, or don't listen to him. He's this. But when I say, okay, but they did listen to me, so how about you explain what's wrong about what I said? They can't do that because nothing I say is wrong.
Well, I mean, damn, man. Right? When you become mayor, we better go to a Raptors game or a Leafs game. You know what I mean? Because I do think you will become mayor.
I think I am.
I was talking to the who was it? Your Doug, your campaign manager, and he was confident in the numbers too. He's like, we're gonna win. We're gonna fucking win.
The amount of support we get, like I could walk into a gas station. If there's 10 people in the gas station, at least 6 people will come and talk to me. What does that tell you?
Yeah, number game. Right?
And they're not talking to me like, hey, I hate you. No, they're like super excited saying they're going to vote for me.
Real people with boots on the ground.
That's
recognizing that you are.
I'm even seeing a plethora of city workers in city vehicles, in city uniforms, like waving at me, honking at me when they see me putting out the lawn signs. Like, we have support all across the spectrum. The only people that don't support us are some people that work in the government. And I said some, because a lot of them do. And the very, very wealthy, because the very, very wealthy don't like the idea of the people having the power. They like the idea of the government having all the power, because then it's easy for them to bribe these people to get exactly what they want. So the really, really wealthy people don't like me either. They like see people like Anthony Furey because they know he's a puppet that can be bought and can be controlled. And that's exactly what they want. Somebody that they can make do whatever they want. They don't want someone like me in power because they can throw money at me and I'll throw it back in their face. They can threaten me and I'll laugh at them. And they can try to make me do what they want, but it's not going to work. And that's exactly why they fear me.
I love it. End it there. That's
I love it.
fire.
Is there anything else I guess you want to say to like, you know, your
audience
the
and the
conclusion
people?
is in 1 week. You know,
Yeah.
we're going to find out.
Very
Friday
simple,
one week.
man.
Friday
For
next week.
everybody that says they've ever supported me, for everyone that says they ever wanted something to do, get out, vote. Go to the voting station nearest your house. Bring your ID. They will validate you and register you on the spot. You can vote in 5 seconds. 82, Chris Saccoccia. Let's give Toronto back to the people. Let's put people and families first.
And when's the last day they can vote?
June 26th is the only day they can vote now.
June 26th.
Early voting's ended. 130,000 votes were cast. I want to see at least 600,000 votes for me. I think we can get up to 1 million votes. That's pushing it. That's like the high end. Low end's 500,000 for me. If I get under 500,000, I'll be very disappointed in everybody.
All right, Chris Saccoccia. Honestly, brother, thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure.
That was a lovely conversation.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, that was a pleasure.
Cheers. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and you don't want to miss this episode.
Yeah.
Peace.
Peace.